Hi, I'm Mici Lavin-Pell, marriage, family, sex, and trauma therapist.
And I'm Molly Livingstone, comedian and alternative thinking consultant, and this is Let's Start. Today on Let's Start, we're going to talk about how do we start listening better. Whew. This one is packed.
Yeah.
This is a lot of different...
So many different elements.
I'm going to even jump in, first of all, and just say, doing improvisation, this is one of the most critical rules, and what I tell people is that they are hearing things, they're not listening. And that's a very big distinction of hearing is to me the multitasking when I'm like, I can cook, I can talk to my kid about their math, I can remind myself that I need to put something on the shopping list. All of this to me is hearing. Because listening takes focus and practice, and it's communication.
It's a huge element of communication, perhaps the most important element of communication,
Definitely.
I think.
And being a good partner.
Yeah.
And that's what I say when we're doing improv. It's like, I always give this, like, what do you want from a dentist? And what do you want from your partner in a relationship? It's the same thing. Someone that listens to you, yes, this is what's funny about it. But it is somebody that's going to listen to you and see you and hear you, right?
Right.
And that's so critical. And so when you can do listening well, there's so much chemistry. I mean, with your dentist, that would be weird, but like in your relationship, and certainly when you play improv, where you let go of what I want to say, and it's not stand up, it's not my show, it's our team playing a game. And
Being together
and listening to you, I actually make you feel safer, which makes us play better, which makes it more interesting and fun.
Funny.
So like the audience will love when two people on stage or three people,
There's
whatever
good
it is.
chemistry.
Exactly. Connect. Exactly. That's what I said. It's chemistry. It's all chemistry. Listening is chemistry. So now shift over here into expertise therapists. Why is listening important in our relationships, and what does it mean?
Well, listening is all about being seen. And that's the biggest thing that anybody wants, in addition to safety, of course, right?
Yes, safety is always important.
Safety is like key, but part and parcel of that is being able to feel seen and heard, right? And so when you take time to really look at your partner square in the face, and you're really just pausing and you're just listening to what they're saying, not just listening to the words they're saying. There's so many different elements to it. It's seeing their facial movements and gestures. It's about really getting into their kishkas and seeing their emotions that they're bringing with it. Oftentimes the couples I work with, they go crazy when they can't hear their partner because they're speaking too fast, they're speaking too slow, the pitch is too high, the pitch is too low. And it's really about getting really the right frequency with your partner.
So there's so much to unpack here, because I think it's not even just the frequency also, which is so critical, and I haven't really thought about that before, but also when you're in a fight, you're thinking already of what you want to say, and you just keep thinking about me, like, where am I in this, instead of like, hey. And like one time when we were at a relationship therapist, my husband and myself, they said, well, we have this fight all the time. I'm like, you didn't, that's not what I said, or you just didn't hear what I said. You never said that. So it was like this very simple, you have to say, I heard you say.
Yeah.
And that really shifted things, because you can't, it's taking account of...
That's imago therapy.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Just for the listeners out there.
Imago, potato. It worked, though, because it made accountability for the things that we were saying, and it made us listen. We were actually then listening to each other.
Right.
And even though I came up with the complaint, I was doing the same thing, right? Like, I wasn't listening.
Well, good on you for noticing that, Molly, because it takes a big person to be able to say that.
I don't tell
truly.
him. No.
You might wanna, because that might actually make, him feel good.
I can be good with my ownerships when I want to. I can recognize them, whether or not I say them out loud or not.
Yeah.
But I do think that's important. I think that happens also a lot on dates. Like, people don't bring their best version of themselves because...
Sometimes.
And they think they're bringing the best version of themselves. They're like so hyped.
They're so nervous.
Yeah, and I'm going to say
what am I going to
this.
say? What am I going to say? Am I saying the right thing?
Right.
And they're not
they're
thinking...
not listening.
They're not thinking about what does this other person want to hear them say.
A huge complaint that women have is like, he didn't ask me any questions. Right? And this is like so super frustrating. Or like, then once you're in a relationship, I hear and I feel a lot that like I'll get cut off when I'm telling a story. Now, someone wants to chime in. That's really great. And they are listening. But then they're not doing the best way of listening if they cut off to say their part, right? And so that space to be able to let people finish their thought and then share is vital.
Exactly.
And I think that also for this generation, it's very, very dangerous. This is something Jonathan Haidt, I think that's his name, with the anxious generation. So this whole thing is like kids on social media is super harmful. Screens are really bad and addictive.
Right.
And this component of listening is kind of dying because you're just drowning in noise.
Drowning in content and information and not really hearing what each other wants to give and offer and receive.
Right. And it's like, it has to do with that attention span. It's like, I can't bother to listen. Like, I was learning through a content creator course just the other day about, back 10 years ago when we started to see that social media was being utilized in social activism, people wrote long posts.
Yeah.
And people could handle reading it. And today that would not work.
No way.
And
3
that's
lines,
a
you're out.
decade. That's like, so short in time.
Yeah.
So like that's listening too, or text messaging. You were saying this before we got started, but share it.
Right. So oftentimes couples will share a text message with their partner.
Yeah.
And things will get lost in translation. And the thing that you think that you're saying, that's very simple, like, can you please pick up some milk, can sound to the other person like, you're a bad person because you're not remembering, you're not even thinking to buy the milk, right? People hear so many different things from these little text messages.
It reminds me of a Keenan and Peele. I can't say it right, but they did this funny thing where it's a text exchange between friends.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, whatever you want. And, the guy reads it, oh, whatever you want, and it's just like, it can totally be misconstrued because we're not listening to the other person. We're taking it from our point of view. Yeah.
Right.
And that's really scary. So like, what do you do? Like,
and even when you do, by the way, just getting back to messages, no, but seriously, even if you do send a message and there's no visual with that, there's so many different ways you could still interpret it. And when you're speaking to somebody and you're seeing their face and you're seeing all the gestures and you're getting the whole context of things, it makes such a difference. How many times do we have a conversation with our partner where he's over there and you're over there and you're like in the middle of doing something and he's not making sure that you're really listening, and you're like, I'm listening, honey, but you're not really listening.
Right, you're not.
And he's saying, did you buy the tomatoes? And you're like, what do you, and then he says, you told me you're going to buy the tomatoes, and then they're not there, and then he needs to make the meal, and it's like, and then one thing spills into another, and next thing you know, you've got this big.
Right. And that happens so often. The little trigger just explodes. And going back again, why this is so, so important, because this is like our social behavior and our humanity. And I think what we're seeing a lot online, which is very scary, is the polarization and the screaming at each other, the not listening to each other.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the anxious generation of like loneliness.
Yeah.
People have become so lonely, and we're not being heard, we're not being seen to each other. We're posting something as a comment online, or we're posting the post and then someone's commenting on me and attacking me, and they know 5% of who I am. This is one post of everything that I am. And when you talk in person, it's so different. Right. And people do less and less of the in-person. They don't have the skills, right? We don't know how to communicate, and so we do less and less of it. It's like this vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. So we really want to break that here. That's why we really want to say, let's start listening. So Mici, from an expert point of view, what are some good tips for our audience to gain out of this, of like, how do I start listening better?
So you really need to, when your partner says to you, I really want you to hear something, you really need to take pause and really spend some time with that person and really understand, think about what the context is of their day. What else is going on in their life when they're sharing something with you.
That is listening, is like not just their voice, but who they are. How are they dressed? Are they exhausted? What's their body language saying? That's listening.
Totally.
Okay.
It's really like stopping, pausing, making eye contact, and really making time for an exchange.
Yeah.
So when one person shares, the other person maybe reflects back. What I heard you say was, like what you were saying, the imago thing, right?
Potato, yeah.
What I heard you say was this. Is that right? And maybe they don't have it right. Maybe what you're really trying to say is actually something else. Maybe you think you're saying something, or maybe they're just not in that primed place to really hear what it is that you want to say. So you might not have to say that point that you want to make a few times. You might need to slice things thinner, because you might have this long diatribe and it's so impossible. I see this all the time with my clients where someone says something and it goes on.
It's like a monologue.
It's a monologue.
Shakespearean torture.
10 minutes, and there's so much in there, and I'm trying to get really focused. I'm really trying to figure out what is the trigger here, what is bothering you. And this happens at home with you and your partner. You also aren't really getting to the point, and they have to siphon through that. It's like they're going on an archaeological dig trying to figure out what is the point that you're trying to make.
Right.
And if you can't make that point really quickly because we don't have the bandwidth to really hear things in such long stretches, you need to kind of speak in shorter snippets.
Yeah.
So that means that when you come to your partner with a big thing that you want to share, you need to really be able to hit the ground running and saying, I am bothered by this.
Right.
Or there is something that is bothering me. And you might even say, well, look, I need there to be a lot of context. There doesn't always need to be so much context. Sometimes you really just need to make things short and sharp so the other person really gets the message, especially if that key message is so very important to you.
Yeah, so I say this a lot with improv, is that when someone says a long statement on stage, what they say to you is, I don't trust you to take this story, so I'm going to keep going and expanding and saying it. And so that leads to a bad partnership, and that plays off of, that's very much true in real life.
Misunderstandings.
Yes, and also it's very important if you give up, like, I'm going to take the story where it is and I'm going to let my partner and be the best to my partner. It's called giving a gift. So if you're able, and then I learn your methods, right?
Yeah.
So like, I understand that, like, oh, this thing upsets you. So this is, I listened not just to you verbally saying it, but I can see that something didn't work. And then I can adapt myself to your needs.
Yeah.
And it's really about, listening is about, how do I make you the best? How do I make you the best? Not me the best, you the best. And when you do that for a partner, it ends up having the effect on both of you.
Absolutely. You really want to make sure that when you're trying to share something with your partner and you really want them to hear that, you need to help them along a little bit.
Yeah.
You can't just give them a whole verbal diarrhea and expect them to be able to pick out the best parts.
Yeah.
You need to really wrap it up in a gift box for them and give it to them.
I think we do this well, or we change this behavior when it comes to being a parent with a child. So my kid will say, you were too harsh on me, or I feel like your expectation, and I can listen and change. But when it comes to workplace or partnerships, romantic partnerships or even friendships, we have it like we see it on the same level, as opposed to a hierarchy where I have to do a better job because you're the kid and I'm the adult. But somehow when it's friendships, we're the same level, but it's not true. Meaning, I want to be a better friend to you, so I need to learn how to work within where you're at, so that you trust me and you give me your friendship back. I want to be a better work partner at work. If you work better with, a schedule, an alert, a phone call, you don't want to be disturbed after 9 o'clock at night, whatever it is, that's the beauty of listening. That's where you can
And
really
responding.
dig.
It's responding. It's about saying, I'm not going to be able to listen to a WhatsApp at 10 o'clock at night. Send me an email so I could look at it in the morning. And I don't want you waking me up in the middle of the night with those ding, ding, dings.
Right. So I think that's where we're talking about, like, the radical form of listening. And there are so many baby steps that will be successful along the way if you can start to change that behavior. So, like, for me, I would say, just from an improv perspective, a better way to listen is to focus on the person and not think about what you want to say when you're having a conversation. And, like, I noticed the smallest things, like picking up somebody's name or remembering that they were supposed to be somewhere the week before, and then saying that within the comment, how did this go? Or people love it because, as you said, listening is being seen. People are like, how did you remember that? And they take so much value out of just listening. So that's like
and
what
validating.
Yeah.
Really validating. That's a very big part of listening as well. Is, wow, I hear that you're in so much pain. That's what I'm hearing right now. Is that really what you're saying? And really holding that moment.
Right.
It's like this pregnant pause that is so rife, and it could just take 3 or 4 seconds, but those 3 or 4 seconds can do all the magic.
Yeah. And when we talk about public speaking, people are so afraid of pauses. They think it's like dead air. And actually, a pause, when used correctly, is brilliant. It really changes and is, totally. So I think that all of these things are important. I think we've given some pretty good tips here today. In our short version, which you can find on YouTube and Instagram, we'll give you just the hack, the starting point that I definitely think you should share with friends and family. This is the long form. This is where we get into it a little bit more, see what sticks for you, what works out, share what you think about this episode, what you want to hear next. And we're here, we're listening. This is Let's Start. If you enjoyed that episode of Let's Start, it's easy to keep listening or watching. All you have to do is
follow us on Mici Lavin-Pell on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, or check out my website, lovingwisely.co.il.
What are you waiting for? Let's start.